Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. We're back on the live Facebook thing. Last week we got kicked off of live for the people that watch it on video on Facebook, and I don't know if it was due to the internet problems from everyone working at home. I know down here in the South, there's been like a 20% drop in internet speeds and things like that, but we'll give it a go here this week again, and we'll see what happens. I still haven't figured out the stupid Skype issue, so I apologize if you hear any crackling or anything like that. And if you have any tips on how we can get rid of that, let me know, because it just started on one of the later Skype updates. But don't have a lot of sports stuff, so we'll see how long we go. The big news coming out today, though, the NFL owners have approved the playoff expansion. And Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't think it hurts. You get a little more football out of it and extends the season. So one of the teams that definitely benefits from it's the Steelers, because they were one of those teams that were right on the bubble, a handful of years that they ended up missing the playoffs. So it's something that locally is going to help Pittsburgh out, because they can continue to do exactly what they've been doing, and now they're going to be in the playoffs.
I think it helps some teams, but not others. And I look at teams like the Lions, where they had such a terrible history of making the playoffs. It might excite their fans to have them see a little bit of success. But a team like the Steelers, I think it hurts, in all honesty, because they either have a team that's good enough to go all the way to the Super Bowl, or they don't. And a lot of times with that, you don't want them to be middling around, having another playoff game where someone can get hurt or something can happen when you really don't have all the pieces. Look at what happened with Carson Palmer. Bengals were turning it around as a franchise. They had a young quarterback, hurts his knee in the playoffs. I think it was a wild card game, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. But you have an extra playoff game. All you're going to have is players giving their all for one more game. Now, granted, they don't see a lot of injuries and things like that, but I mean, I could see it both ways, because I don't want to say that it only hurts the players, because a lot of them have in their contract specific language if they make a playoff game, if they score a touchdown in the playoffs or something like that. So this gives them another opportunity to earn money. Same with coaches. We complain all the time about coaches being recycled. It's going to be a lot harder to fire your coach if he's making the playoffs every year at 8-8. They already have teams that make it at 7-9. Has there been one ever that made it 6-8? I mean, losing records aren't something that is unique to the playoffs in the NFL. So that's what we're looking at. And you can think about it in terms of, awesome, more football, but it's the same amount of weekends. Are they going to show all of the playoff games in their entirety? Because they had it set up that you could watch them all. I would assume it's going to be something similar where they get rid of one. Wait, are they getting rid of one more bye week, or are they having 6 the first weekend? Because if they do have six games that first weekend, we might not get to watch every game unless they do a Sunday night and a Monday night, which puts that team at a disadvantage. I don't know. Because they do the 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock games or whatever on Saturday, and then on Sunday they do the 1 and the 4 or slightly adjusted. So are they going to have it set up so that you can watch every game? Or are they going to kind of run half and half? I don't know. So, I mean, do you have anything else on the playoff expansion before we continue?
I mean, I think you made an interesting point with the way that the contracts are negotiated, and I wonder if that's going to have an effect. I mean, I would think that it would have to, that when you go through the wording of some of those contracts, if they're allowing more people in, that may change people to want to restructure or restructure those contracts so that they're a little bit clearer on what they're looking for in terms of some of those playoff bonuses if they're going to let more people in.
And I think you're going to see, I mean, it's probably going to be even more specific now, where if you're a head coach, you get to the divisional round or you get to the conference championship game instead of just making the playoffs. I think you'll start to see more of a tiered bonus system because owners don't want to be paying extra millions of dollars if you make the playoffs every year but lose in the first round. So I think you're going to be able to see more of a tiered system to get payments. For players, though, where it's typically like score this many touchdowns or whatever, it's more incentive-based, not just on wins, because it's hard to negotiate outside of quarterbacks. I mean, if you're a defensive back, you might be like, hey, have so many tackles in the playoffs or whatever, make an impact, but they're really not going to put the words in on things that they can't control. And I think that's where you see a lot of receivers complaining and things like that, like throw me the ball, because they have that in their contract where if you're like a league leader, you might get that bonus. And not every player has that. I'm talking about the top players, the ones that were complaining about the collective bargaining agreement because they were being left out in the cold. I mean, now you have another leverage piece where you can put into your contract specific language to try to get extra money off of the owners. And that spins me to another thing. And this is totally unrelated. I guess it's not totally unrelated to football, but I saw Messi, the soccer player, he decided to take 70% pay cut this year to help his team out. And I thought, why? Why would you ever do that? You're only going to be in your prime for how many years? You negotiate a top contract. You have no incentive to take the pay cut. They're not going to cut you. If they cut you, you're a big enough name that you can go out and demand that salary from any other team. You're just kind of helping an owner, which I could see that, hey, you're helping an owner out, but is he taking a pay cut? Is he going to take 70% less of the profits next year to give you your money back? If you're an athlete, I feel like there's zero chance you should be taking a pay cut. And that goes for a lot of other people where I saw, like even just across industries, I saw a thing where they were saying CEOs were installing like time tracking for like remote employees, people working from home, or they had cameras that would take pictures every 5 seconds of you working at home. And then the interviewer asked a couple CEOs and said, well, do you have it installed too? And of course, none of the CEOs would answer the question because they're not getting tracked. They're only caring about the other people. So in terms of like the athletes, this isn't going to hurt you. People are still going to be looking for sports. We'll talk about some esports maybe later, but ESPN is showing Kevin Durant playing 2K basketball, which is a video game for listeners that don't follow video games. It's a video basketball game. And they're having a tournament with 16 players on ESPN this weekend because they don't have any live programming. So if you're an athlete, they're going to keep showing your games. They just showed a replay on Sunday of the Falcons Super Bowl where they blew it to the Patriots and Tom Brady won his ring. Do you think they're going to give you a cut of that money? I mean, you get the negotiated whatever from the TV deal, but these extra shows that they wouldn't be showing, Fox would not have been showing NFL games right now on their main channel. That would have been XFL or something else that got canceled. So who's getting that money from that extra TV deal that they're pulling that film out? I mean, those are questions that I'm looking at and seeing athletes taking cuts. Yeah, you're going to get some public sentiment, but you're taking 70% of your cut and you're going to lose a year of your athletic ability. That's why you hear of athletes all the time going broke when they retire. Because they have to pay trainers, they have to pay nutritionists, they have to pay all these other things that are going on. So they're almost like their own little business. And so I just think it's crazy when we would take a pay cut with no like incentive on your behalf. But what are your thoughts on that, Matt?
I don't know. I have mixed feelings because I think if you're doing it because you want to win a championship, I think that's there is some merit there. If you've accomplished a lot of personal goals and you have like the personal stats, but you're truly out to win a championship, I can see that you think, well, if I take a pay cut, then I know that they can afford to pay this player that I would want to play with. It goes back to that whole point of, do you enjoy where you're at? Because there's a lot of people that they have a lot of freedom, and using New England as an example, they go up to New England and Belichick runs a really tight ship and puts restrictions on a lot of the behavior and conduct of players, and they don't last long there because the expectations are you're going to do things their way. So I think you have to look at, weigh it out of, is it wins or is it, having that comfortable place where you want to play. And if it means taking a drastic pay cut, maybe to sign some free agents or to sign some people that you're familiar with or that are willing to come and help you win a championship, then I think it's worth it.
I think it's worth it in that respect whenever you're taking a pay cut to try to win a championship, because I think you can make that up on the tail end if you're known as a world champ. I mean, people look at LeBron, him jumping teams. He's doing that so that he can stay relevant. He's jumping the teams and trying to build these little super teams so that he's consistently in the playoffs. He's not taking a down year like the Warriors right now to see if, okay, you have a couple injuries. Obviously, they're tanking pretty bad. They come back. They're going to have a high draft pick next year. They're going to kind of rebuild with those same guys when very easily they all could have left like Kevin Durant did and tried to build their own little super team. So in that respect, I could see it. You're trying to take a pay cut to win a championship to further market yourself. But right now, there's zero reason to take a pay cut. I mean, if you're an NFL guy, could you imagine if you were coming in as the first overall pick and they decided not to pay you as much because of the, for whatever reason, they're not playing games right now. They're not on TV, so they're not collecting the revenue. And I even see some athletes paying staff at the stadium, which is great, but why are they the ones doing it? They don't own, they're not the owners. They're not going to get any receipts. They're not going to get a cut of that when they open back up.
But part of it is they get the tax write-off of being able to say that they did that. There's also just being a decent human being that I know not everyone wants to do. And when you have people that have other teammates and things that are poor role models, it's good to see that there's some of these people that they're financially in a good spot where they can afford to pay for some of these support people maybe that would get thrown by the wayside.
Well, I agree with that. I just think that it should be the owners. These guys are billionaires.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100% with that. And
how many of them have stepped up? Looking around Major League Baseball, there were teams waiting until the Major League stepped in and said, yo, this is mandated. You have to pay $1 million payroll or whatever they ended up setting. But it was almost like, whoa, not me. Let's hold off on that. We're not going to pay these guys, which I think is crazy.
Did you see that they paid minor league baseball?
Did they? Well, they should.
They just came through that they were going to be approved for medical, and I forget how much of the salary they were going to be receiving, but those players were going to be getting coverage as well, because that was one of the things that the players were talking about, was that it's comfortable that you can sit home as a major league athlete on your professional contract, but for the people that are in the minor leagues that are making substantially less, they were going to be in a really tough spot without having any games to be played. So they did step in and were going to pay those other people, which I think they should. When you look at these owners and for how much money they're making off of their radio deals and their TV deals and the league deals and all these other broadcasting things, they're making money hand over fist. That in a unique situation like this, they should be doing everything they can to help the smaller people on the totem pole.
And I'll go one further. If they didn't pay the minor leagues, then I think you would see a bunch of lawyers, or at least, I would try to help these guys out, because a lot of people, they don't understand that when you're in the minor leagues, you sign kind of like the rookie deal. And that's it. If you're stuck in a bad franchise, or a team that trades for a shortstop and you're a shortstop that was supposed to be called up, guess what? You're screwed. So if Major League Baseball decided not to pay all those guys, I would think that would get them out of their contracts and they would be able to renegotiate. And of course, that would hurt some players. They might not want to do that. But I think you could see a lot of stars from big-time franchises that have great farm systems where you come back from not paying them. They lawyer up and say, like, look, you didn't pay me by the terms of my contract. I'm a free agent. I'm going to go sign with the Yankees right now. And I think that's where you're seeing teams that are going to come up and say, yeah, I guess we better keep paying these guys because we don't want to give them a reason to shop around. Because I think that's a really big possibility. And same with some of these other sports where, like soccer or even hockey and stuff that's shut down that aren't as financially stable as, say, the NFL. I mean, what are you really going to do if that happens? If you don't pay the guys, I don't see how the contract stays. Same with like Messi. He agreed to take a cut because there was no way for him not to do it. And now is he going to stay at home and not work out at all? And then come back in horrible shape? Is he going to give 30% effort at home? Because that would be hilarious if he came back and he was like Le'Veon Bell coming back into the season, or who's some other guys that showed up out of shape. Like you just come back and you're like, oh my gosh, you haven't been working out at all. It's like, yeah, I was staying at home. I was playing video games all day. I wasn't doing anything. Like you guys didn't pay me my top salary. I'm not working out like the number one guy if I'm not getting paid it. So I don't know. Speaking of the season and sitting out and stuff, NFL execs are planning for the season to start on time with fans in the stands. And I think right now it's going to be iffy because I don't know if we actually talked about this on the show or if it's something I talked with Matt off the record last week, but I've been hearing that the Big Ten is already expecting camp to be pushed back. And so what that means is a lot of universities are going to be canceling all summer activities. And so instead of having camp and being ready to play in August or so, you're not going to start until later in the year, which is going to cut into prep time and practice time. And I've heard things thrown around where they might kill the first couple weeks of the season or try to get out of non-conference games. I don't know how viable it would be or what they would do, but I have heard some rumblings too that like at Penn State or Michigan or Ohio State, they're going to have a tough time getting 100,000 people together in a stadium. That's just a fact. It's not like it's Northwestern where half the stadium's empty, or it's a smaller stadium and people are spread out, or Rutgers or something like that, even Maryland, where they have a big stadium, everyone can just space out. I mean, Penn State tailgating alone makes State College like what the biggest city in the state at that time, or second or third or something like that. So you're looking at an event that puts so many people in close proximity. To have the NFL say that they're going to be playing with fans, and from what I'm hearing on the college side, I just don't think it's going to happen. What are your thoughts? What are you hearing outside of what I'm telling you?
I mean, to me, I think that there's so much misinformation being passed around that I would be curious to see what the next 2 months bring. And I think that's the better move to do. What I would hate to see happen is to have people try to rush to judgment and cancel everything only to create more problems after the fact, or to try to scramble to do something after it's too late. After they cancel the season or they cancel the fall sports. I think there's a lot of stuff, and especially because for a lot of school districts, and especially smaller high schools and things, their athletic budget's coming from their football money, because that's the sport that's going to generate the most fans. It's going to bring in the most people, the concession stand, things like that go into it. So I think if they push back college football, how many colleges are going to be affected by the lack of revenue that's being generated. I think there's going to be a huge windfall of money that if they push the season off or they rush to try to cancel it, it's going to affect a lot of people. I think the smarter move is to kind of wait and make the judgment at the appropriate time, and hopefully the level heads will be able to make that decision as more information becomes available. But I would hate that here we are the end of March to say, oh yeah, push camp back in August when you don't really know what's going to happen a couple months from now.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people that you're talking about having concessions and stuff like that, I could see them playing without fans, and that stuff's going to be hurt anyway. So even like on a high school level, if they play it but don't keep it open to the public, I mean, what's going to happen? They're not going to get the revenue that they normally get from those games, and it's going to hurt no matter what. So you're looking at it, if you're going on that small of a scale, for colleges, some of them might not be affected, but to your point, look, a lot of the D1 schools that are trying to hang with the big boys, where that pays for all of their other sports, they're really going to be hurting because they're already missing out on the basketball money. I think I saw somewhere where they were calculating the fees lost on this college basketball tournament, and it worked out, was it the Big 12? I saw one of the fan blogs, they put it together, and it was over $1 million. And for some of the smaller conferences that don't have football, that's their entire budget, like for the year. So the A10 or another conference like that doesn't, or do they play football? I don't even know. But some of those that only play basketball, they don't have a lot of other sports. They might only sponsor 5 to 10 sports in their entire university. That $1 million or whatever they get from the tournament pays for everything. And they just play a smaller scale. Guess what? They didn't get that. Now they're screwed. Schools like Old Dominion or whatever that are smaller that are going to try to make that up with football. If football's canceled, I mean, I could see them being really hurt. Look at Florida State. Florida State was already in the black a couple years ago in the ACC until ACC decided to give them more money. Did they fix their finances? Or now is this going to come back and hurt them? Because I would imagine, too, if you're looking at television deals, are they going to get paid out? I mean, they're already losing the NCAA money. Are the networks going to pay? Are they not going to pay? Are they going to pay the full benefit? I don't even know what they're going to try to do to get out of that contract or whatever. Because from that point, do you try to just play the football games without fans? I don't know. Like, I feel like it's going to be a hard call, especially whenever you're getting 40,000 kids on campus anyway for the start of the semester. And I think that's what's really going to push it for colleges is it's not just getting fans to go to the games. It's going to be getting all the kids back at school where if the virus is still getting spread and there's no cure or anything that can make it better. I don't know. So the NFL, I mean, they were getting a lot of flack for their draft, and they didn't push it back. So we will see. I mean, if it comes out that a bunch of people got sick from the draft, I would imagine they're going to get a ton of backlash, and that's going to push back summer camp, and then you're going to get the same situation where they have to make a call. Are they shortening the season? Are they going to get rid of preseason? What are they doing here? Because if something happens over the next month or two, like you said, guess what? Camp starts up. Like, where's it going to go from there? They already have NBA teams. I think they said they had to quarantine the Lakers team because they were still going out together. Like you said, I think you brought it up on the show. So a bunch of them got sick, and now they had to wait 2 weeks in quarantine, and I think that they're all good now. But that's one team. Could they get it again? I don't know. It's crazy. Let's see what else we have on here. Mailbag, Matt. If you could start a franchise with any quarterback from any era, who would be your pick?
This is what I've been going back and forth with, and There's a lot of good ones. I'm going to go against what I was traditionally thinking. I'm going to go with a guy like Brett Favre. Go with the gunslinger. That you know that he's passionate about the game, and he's obviously won on the biggest stage. And I think he would be a pretty good person to build around.
For your franchise, though? What about his off-the-field issues?
What about him?
You don't think that would bring a black eye to your franchise? Sending nudes, your quarterback?
Yeah, that probably...
Two reporters, I mean, in all honesty, reporters. It's not like he's just sending them on Tinder to some random girl. Or someone that he knows.
Well, I will say, my initial thought was along the lines of someone like Johnny Unitas, who was with Baltimore, but not many people are familiar with his body of work. So I'm trying to think of someone that would be a little bit more relevant for current situation. But I think when you're looking at it in general, you want to have someone that, when they're on the field, are they able to make the plays that they need you to, that are confident enough to execute the plan. You want that guy to be able to have the chalk and say, go win the game, and feel comfortable that they're going to do it.
It's almost like there's a quarterback out there right now that could fill that void, try to make big plays, winning games he's not supposed to. You know who I'm talking about. Eli Manning. He had the helmet throw. How many other quarterbacks? I mean, he stayed clean. He has a great family. They do good commercials. Nobody hates him. He's soft-spoken. No controversies around him. He knows how to lose with class whenever you're rebuilding. What else could you want? Why are you laughing?
I don't even know. That's so stupid. I don't even know what to say.
What's stupid about it is did he win more Super Bowls than Brett Favre? How many did Favre win?
I think he just had the one.
Oh, geez, anyone could win one.
Not anyone.
Hey, I'm saying if you're starting a franchise, Matt, you don't want controversy. You want a good role model. He comes from NFL family. His brother's all right. He had the HGH thing, though.
But that was the end of his career. I'm not saying I want old Brett Favre.
What, you think younger Brett Favre wouldn't be taking the shots like that?
Obviously not, because they didn't put him out there. His
nickname was the Gunslinger. How do you know he wasn't mailing Kodaks? Or Polaroids? What would it be? Polaroids?
Disposable cameras.
Yeah, how do you know he wasn't doing that back in the day? You don't know. People didn't know. They were like, "What's this? You got a package from B. Favre."
You literally got a package from B. Favre.
I mean, is that your honest pick, Brett Favre?
I don't know. What do you think is the most important trait, though? If you're picking to build your franchise,
I told you, keeping clean, not getting in trouble, not getting injured. Has Eli Manning ever missed a season?
So basically, you just want him to be just to not get hit.
A champion, multiple champion. I think that should be. I think the multi-championship thing should be the criteria that cuts a lot of people out. I mean, if you want guys like that really know how to put a franchise on, what about Terry Bradshaw, dude?
You could look at someone like him. I would almost think, what about someone like Warren Moon?
He's not a champion. You can cut him right out.
Yes, he is.
And what, the CFL?
Yeah, he won. I think he won in the CFL, and I believe maybe the USFL, but don't quote me on that one.
Well, I don't know all these other FLs you're making up. So we got to go back to Super Bowl champions. And like I said,
well, if you're going that route, then why don't we just pick Trent Dilfer? He's a Super Bowl champion.
Multiple, though? I said 2 was my cutoff.
Oh, 2 is your cutoff.
Yeah, anyone could win 1. I already said that with Brett Favre. Which, look that up. If he won more than 1, you're going to look like a real idiot.
Jim Kelly went to 4.
He didn't win any. He does give great speeches, though. But I think Terry Bradshaw, dude, he knows enough about the game that he's still on TV decades later. How many other quarterbacks from the 70s are on TV?
If OJ didn't kill everyone, I bet he probably would be.
He's on Twitter now.
He is on Twitter.
So he's putting it out there. He got some real getting even to do. I think that was his quote from his first video. So he's out there. I mean, honestly, everyone knows it's Tom Brady, but Eli Manning wouldn't be a bad pick.
You're such a turd.
Put him in the Hall of Fame. That's all I'm going to say. And for all you Eli haters, I don't know why. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I don't know why you would hate Eli. He didn't do anything wrong. He took Tom Brady down twice. So Eli 2, Tom Brady 0. Matt, if you're trying to even him out, those are my 2 picks right there. Balance them out.
So does Eli go in the Hall before Peyton?
Is Peyton already in the Hall of Fame? How many years do you have to wait?
I don't know.
I don't know either. All right, let's get on. I don't think that might be it for football. The NCAA has approved an extra year of eligibility for spring athletes. And notice the key word there, spring. That doesn't mean basketball. So when I read the actual release, Matt, guess the only sport that it really mattered to, guess what? Baseball. None of the other sports had scholarship limits. According to the NCAA thing, why aren't teams oversigning? Did they forget that college football in the 70s existed? A lot of teams could have powerhouses in every sport. So I'm very disappointed in Michigan how they're not bringing home championships in other sports when they could easily be gaming the system to their advantage after finding out about this baseball thing. I did see a couple of coaches that were anonymous saying about how bad it was. Although I think one was from Maryland. I think it said a University of Maryland coach said that he didn't like the extra year of eligibility because, you know why, Matt? Because the recruiting class is coming in. Now they're not going to be able to guarantee them playing time. So I think that's the only reason why some coaches are against it, because he didn't really give a reason. He kind of just cut off in the newspaper quote. That's like where they ended it. I'm like, okay, you say he's not into it. Why? But that's my thought. Because now you have guys that can come back and it messes up your scheme, where a lot of these other sports, lacrosse, I want to say that might have been the Maryland coach, because it said something about Maryland winning a lacrosse championship recently. So I thought, okay, that's probably, they're not really giving a good cover for this anonymous guy. So why? Like, there can't be that many lacrosse people coming in. The only thing that would deter them from coming to your university is playing time. It's not like they're not going to get drafted. So we'll see if this has any effect on the smaller schools or some of those other. I mean, I guess basketball is not a part. As I say, I wonder what would happen with women's basketball, because you could see the same thing. You come into a big time program, is that going to push people around? But most people aren't going to notice for baseball and softball. Who knows? So the key word, though, is spring. They're not giving winter athletes. So if you're a basketball player, you're done. If you're a senior, that's how your year ended. Strange. Anything else you have on that?
No, I guess it is good for those spring athletes who really didn't have a chance to get through their full year. It's unfortunate that they missed out on the tournament, because that would have been a chance for some of these lesser known players to make a name for themselves. But it's just bizarre with how quickly everything went from we're good to being on lockdown. So best of luck to those guys as they graduate and moving forward with their rest of their lives.
And it's pretty much a state-by-state thing. I know the NCAA is a little bit different because it's bigger and it talks about all these other sports, but I do know, going back to some of the high school stuff you brought up, there are some states, and was it Maine maybe? Massachusetts? It was an eastern state that has said that they're looking into a way for schools to resume near the end of April and for spring sports to continue. So they're looking for a way to get an abbreviated season in, which shocked me because, like I had said, in high school, what are they going to do? Keep the fans out? But then the big problem is if it gets into your school, it pretty much spreads. Look at Liberty. Liberty University came back and said, like, hey, we're going to return to campus. And then the virus started spreading there. And then I think whenever that happens, you're opening yourself up to lawsuits and all this other stuff. So I think a lot of that's going to be a big warning shot to all the other schools where they saw that. And now they're going to say, like, look, we can't come back. We can't risk it. And so that's what worries me, where if you're already hearing that football is going to be pushed back or they're going to do this, and that's the big money sport, all those other sports that start at the same time, soccer and stuff like that, they're going to be brushed over very easily, I would think. So we'll see. Hopefully, if it does extend, they reconsider. Like, I would like to see just give them a super team. Like, hey, any seniors that want to come back. And I think for the spring athletes, if you're a freshman, next year you're going to be a freshman again, which makes sense because you didn't play your freshman year. So it's almost like a red shirt, but I guess you can still red shirt and get your extra year of eligibility. I'm not sure how it all works, but those are my thoughts on it. Off topic, though, away from that kind of stuff, big news came out. Power 5 schools combined to pay almost $500 million in severance payments over the past 15 years, I think, was the research point. Guess which school paid the most, Matt?
Texas A&M.
No. I thought you were going to say Notre Dame, but I honestly don't think they were in the data because they're a private school. So they could have been with Charlie Weiss, but it's been Nebraska because they had the big Bo Pelini thing, and then they went through the Mike Riley thing and a bunch of other stuff. But if you look at the graph, and this is from athleticdirectorsu.com, athleticdirectoru.com, I think is what it is. I don't know why they don't have that on the graphic, but they had a pretty big incline in 2018 where schools were paying out, and this is an average across the entire NCAA, so that just shows you get 100 couple schools, some of them must be paying really big buyouts for the rest of them to average over $2 million for that year in buyouts. Crazy.
Well, we talked about that on here, though, that they put those buyouts in as high as they do to give the coach a little, to protect the school, but also to give them a little bit of insurance that the coach isn't just going to leave after 1 year and jump from program to program.
And I also wonder, because they didn't really dig into at least the data from some of the schools, like, let's be honest, this isn't coming from the general fund. Like, what's the club, Booster Club at Florida State? Is that a Tomahawk Club or something like that? Like, I want to say that they paid a lot of Willie Taggart's fee. So it's not like the university's like, okay, kids, we're going to have to cut some scholarships here this year. We got to pay Big Willie. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
So normally you have to get the boosters behind it where someone says, like, you know what, I'm going to give you $1 million gift a year until we get rid of this guy. But you do have some coaches that keep getting paid, like Notre Dame. They're paying Charlie Weiss forever. They might still be paying him. I don't know. And some of their other stuff. So they have a crazy amount of money just exchanging hands back to coaches outside of their already high salary. So they talk about paying players. Yikes, I'm pretty sure this is a big strike in the other way, because how many athletes could you fund with $500 million? Probably a good bit. Stipends, anyway. Let's see what else. Another coaching corner, Matt. This is for you. What makes for a good offense as a coach? I think this is our last topic for the day.
Interesting. For me, one of the things that, regardless of what system you have, that you follow something. To me, the worst offense, I guess the best way to answer what makes a good offense is, what's a bad offense. And that's where you see people, and this happens a lot, where you go to clinics and you pick up different things that you see other teams do, and you think, oh, I can do that. And instead of having some kind of organized system that you follow, that you end up with this mishmash grab bag of things that then you end up being jack of all trades, master of none. And I think when you look at what makes for a good offense, you have answers. So when you're playing a team and when they're doing something to stop maybe your best play, what's your counterpunch? What are you doing to set plays up to have other plays off of them? And when you're able to do that, I think that's what really makes for a good offense. Consistently, I think you've seen that being able to run the ball is definitely one of the things that helps win games. And you'll see teams like Air Raids that they use screens similar to run plays, but it's establishing the ground and getting the defense, on their heels. What do you think?
Well, that's a good point you made about the run game, because normally when you're running the ball, you have the lead. And I think I saw a crazy stat where, I don't know if it was Harbaugh at Michigan or Harbaugh in his entire career, but when he's run 70% of the time in a game, he's like undefeated or something like that. I saw a stat like that. Someone's probably going to tell me I'm wrong, but I didn't put it together. I saw that floating around, so it could be fake. But it makes sense, because once you're up, you're just going to run the clock out, or you know that you're pounding the ball down their throats. You're just going to keep running it anyway. And so I don't really know if it's that much of a system, because some systems like Mike Leach, where he throws the ball a lot of his screens and bubble screens, things like that, they are part of the run game technically, where he's using those to get out in space, get a couple yards, and keep the defense from just rushing every play. You just slip a guy out. It could be a tight end for 3 yards here or there. And so it's not just technically rushing it where you think of, okay, power set with the fullback in there, I'm going to pound it in the middle. Other offenses can do that consistently to keep the clock running, get your defense a breather, and anything like that. So for me, I think it comes down to consistency. So it doesn't matter what philosophy you're throwing out there. If you're a running game, or one of the things like just making a point whenever it was one of the years, it was like one of the college football games on the PlayStation. It was NCAA 14 or something like that, where they expanded the option. I could run that on that game the entire time, and I know I beat you with it, Matt, which is such a dumb offense that you would think, okay, well, no one runs this anymore. But as long as you're making the reads consistently and you're doing the right thing, it can work. And I think that's why with Army and Navy, they still run that type of offense every year, because they're not going to get the athletes and the recruits because of their limitations and commitments, where if a player signs with them, they can't go pro right away, and things like that people don't understand, which I think, was it President Trump or someone was saying that they might get rid of that, where if you sign with them, you might be able to go and forego your commitment or use like your NFL career as part of your commitment, because that will be a good way for them to get advertising. Because you don't see any NFL guys that said like they went to Army, or like Navy, like Roger Staubach. I think he went to Navy. So back in the day, that was a good recruiting point, where you can go to Navy, you can play in the NFL and win a Super Bowl. Not so much anymore. So I hope that does change, and I hope that wasn't just a rumor that I had heard.
No, that was President Trump did sign that into effect.
So that will help them. But in terms of just personnel, like I really enjoy the Mike Leach offense. We talk about it all the time on here. And so people that listen to the show, they know that. I also like throwing the ball a lot. But I understand that running plays and stuff keep it honest. I'm a big fan of the zone read, because I think that if you get the blocking consistently, you're not really worried about assignments or fancy blocking. You can run a lot of passes out of that, similar to what Iowa does. And they don't get a lot of big recruits either. So, I mean, I think a lot of things can work. You just got to find what your personnel is good at and what can they execute well.
and I think you hit the nail right on the head, is that what are you able to use consistently? What type of kids do you have consistently? Because if you don't have, that mobile quarterback, then running a zone read type scheme is really going to put you at a disadvantage because they're not going to be able to bail themselves out with their legs. And being able to say from year to year, you may have a really good athlete that you want to highlight, but then when he's gone in a year or two, are you a team that completely just changes what you do and what your identity is because of the people that you have? If you can take it and kind of make some changes within it, and you can consistently play to the strengths of your team, you should be successful.
And I think that if you look at it from just in terms of teams and stuff like that, it also comes down to how well your quarterback can handle the pressure. I know we talk about it a lot in the NFL, but at the college level or even at the high school level, you can't be throwing the ball 100 times a game if your quarterback doesn't know how to make a good read progression, or he's afraid to throw the ball away, or things like that. Anything that could really hinder your offense, you kind of got to tailor it around that. And I think, we talk about Jameis Winston a lot on this show lately, which I think the Steelers are starting to show some interest, because I've seen a lot of other people come up that's not just us talking about the possibility of picking him up on a lower contract. Bruce Arians kept throwing him out there. He obviously didn't understand the scheme, and he was out there throwing 30 interceptions. Some of that has to be on the offensive coordinator. I'm sorry. Oh,
absolutely. And when you look at, he led the league in passes over 20 yards, so he was pushing the ball vertically down the field. He led the league in passing yards and touchdowns. So there was something to that, yes, he had the interceptions that went with it, but there were also a lot of offensive production at the same time. What were those situations? If you're in 3rd and long and you're constantly having to push the ball down the field in obvious passing situations, well, then you're going to have more interceptions. It's that's part of that same offensive system that we've talked about for a long time.
Yeah, so, in terms of that, too, you have to have trust in your guys. Like, if you go out there and call an all-go or some type of option with your wide receiver, I saw Sean Payton was pointing out some of his plays on Twitter, and one of them he gave Jerry Rice a shout-out because it was an option route. If your quarterback and receiver aren't on the same page, you can have the best option route planned out as a coach, and you're like, okay, it's open. And once you see your guy take the wrong step, you just have to cringe and be like, oh, man, we missed it. You can tell them, like, hey, we missed it, wrong read. You might never get the chance again. So some of it comes down to execution, and as a coach, you got to keep it simple, but you also have to let them play because you don't want to become too one-dimensional. Otherwise, coaches can just sit back and pick and choose, just like some fans can pick and choose what play is going to come. Like, yeah, they're just going to run up the middle here. Some offenses, you can predict that. So, I don't know. Anything else you got on this?
Nope.
All right, I think that's our last one for today. Yeah, it is. So we'll close out the show with the final bell. I forgot to put a final bell up. We didn't really go high tempo this week just because there's no big sports stories coming out. So we'll keep doing the coaching corner and some other stuff on the show as we get ready. We have the NFL draft coming up. I don't think it's being pushed back yet. I hope it doesn't. So we'll be hearing some news come out about that. In terms of the Steelers for the final bell, I'll keep going with the quarterback thing. I wonder if the Steelers are worried now about this season and the potential of missing it. Because a lot of new reports are coming out that they're considering taking a quarterback. And for me, before everything was canceled, there were no hints of that at all. Why would you take a quarterback? You have Ben. You have a couple quarterbacks that you've been trying to work with last year. Give it one more go. The only way you would waste your second-round pick on a quarterback this year is if you thought Ben was over. And if we miss another year, he's 40, getting up there. I think he's done. Coming off an injury, if the year's canceled, that could be the last time we've seen Ben.
Yep.
And same with like Tampa Bay. I think we might have joked about it last week, but they signed Tom Brady to this big deal. If they end up not being able to play with him, he's going to be like 45 years old. Do you really think they're going to get 2 years out of him? It's a big gamble. So, I mean, that's what I'm hearing from the Steelers right now, is that they're seriously considering taking a quarterback, which to me, it's like, how many quarterbacks are you going to take in the top rounds the past couple of years? Take one late, do something, make a trade, but sign. I'm all for just signing Jameis now. Because someone was putting out, would you take a chance on Jameis, or would you take a high draft pick and try to get Jalen Hurts or someone? Maybe you can get him in a late round. I don't know. But to me, just get an established vet, because you have this entire season. If they end up not playing, he can still learn from Ben. And it's almost like you have a chance to mentor him. He has the game reps. If you draft the quarterback now, he's going to learn from Ben, but he's not going to be able to get the game reps. It's not going to be able to apply. He's not going to be able to learn on the sideline in a game until the following year, when there's a chance Ben might not even be on the sideline at all. So it's almost like a lost year. And then you're just kind of rebuilding from scratch. So I'd hate to see that. But that's my final bell. Hopefully we get more news on that going into next week. But what do you have, Matt?
Just kind of, since we're in this quarantine type situation, it's been kind of cool over the last couple days or so, or week, the different stuff the coaches are putting out, and how they're putting some virtual clinics out there, so that you're still getting to scratch that itch, so to speak, and talking with coaches from other states and getting some ideas for stuff. So I think it's cool that people are taking advantage of this downtime, per se, to kind of network and put some good content out.
Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned it last week, but the NFL has Game Pass for free right now until the end of May, I believe. So you can go back and watch any football game from 2009 till last season. If you're looking for content like that, there's some video game type stuff going on. If you go to our YouTube channel, Southbound Sports, we started to simulate the NCAA basketball tournament. I know we normally don't talk basketball, but that's on there. And looking at doing some other sims maybe for the rest of the XFL season or something like that. So check that out. Go to our website, southboundsports.com. I'm hoping to be able to get time to update that soon, put up our fake NCAA bracket and things like that. But we just started to get it underway. Hopefully the quarantine already got pushed back to the end of April. So hopefully things start to get back to normal soon. But thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.